see them filming and including in the Netflix series a private text message. OK, they don't reveal the contents, but clearly a negative text message that William...
Absolutely. What we're really now seeing is that both of them, having posed as the victim for so long, are really the aggressors. And what I really thought at the end of it as well was this, which I think is a very, very pertinent point. When they came across for the Queen's funeral, and there was that amazing scene outside the castle of meeting the well-wishers in the walk, there was always talk of reconciliation. Mm-hmm. Charles and William and Kate go one side, Harry and Meghan the other side, smiling and all the rest of it. But at that time, William didn't know that Harry and Meghan had already recorded their poison for Netflix. It was already edited. All the stuff that we heard today about Charles lying, about William screaming and shouting, was in the can, was being edited. And they duplicitly did not reveal what they were going to do. Now, Harry's got form on that, because he did exactly the same at Prince Philip's funeral when he recorded that whole thing about how his father was responsible for his mental breakdown. And he stood in the St. George's Chapel, knowing that he'd done his family down in the Apple broadcast, the armchair broadcast, and didn't reveal it. So he's as duplicitous as Meghan, but it's worse, because she's an actress. She's got no stake in this country. But Harry, a former army officer, betraying the army, his country, his family, his father, dumping on the king, the future king too, and also on his grandmother, that is extraordinary. I mean, Diana would be shocked. The one thing Diana didn't do was be so duplicitous, so dishonest.
Well, no, and Diana made it clear, didn't she? Her criticism was always reserved for Charles.
Absolutely.
Not for the Queen, not for the institution of monarchy itself.
They told their truth to Oprah. They wrote their truth in Spare. But now, one of the monarchy's fiercest critics says the truth is coming undone. Royal biographer Tom Bower calls it extraordinary as the Sussex narrative begins to unravel. In a new sit-down, Bower, known for his unapologetic commentary, breaks down inconsistencies in Harry and Meghan's public claims, from alleged royal racism to their timeline of events inside the palace. He paints a picture not of betrayal, but of brand-building dressed in victimhood. And he's not alone in that suspicion. From Netflix specials to podcast soundbites, the Sussexes have carefully crafted a narrative of exile, mistreatment, and media abuse. But as timelines are cross-checked and witnesses emerge, experts, like Bower, suggest cracks are beginning to show. And with every contradiction, public sympathy shifts. Their reputation was once their currency, from Spotify deals to Netflix documentaries.
But Harry has actually gone out of his way to undermine everything that we stand for. He's gone out of his way to undermine the family, the institution, everything. And I think Diana, well, I know, we all know, Diana would be shocked that we're sitting here today discussing her son as an outright liar, as a man who conspired with Meghan in this 6 hours of perfidy. You know, for example, the whole description she does of the Portland hospital, the birth, that was completely fabricated. We all know the first interview was given to CBS. We all know that she never intended to go to the Portland hospital. She intended to have the baby at home. We know that they deceived the public about the birth data and time of the whole event. So, and also, you know, even it goes down to the lawyer saying that in that statement, when they have that long attack on the Mail, which is astonishing, that Meghan, we know she lied in her statement, that she says that she didn't cooperate with Omid Scobie, and she said that she didn't consult anyone when writing the letter to her father. That was in a sworn written statement. That was untrue. She then admits that it was untrue. But her lawyer says Meghan didn't lie. Well, extraordinary how the whole thing is unraveling.
And yet they don't produce any evidence.
None at all.
Of the claims that they have made against the royal family. For example, William being a bully. For example, this idea that the royal family was conspiring with the press to bring them down. Where is the evidence?
It's always they. They never name them, except they did name Jason Knauf, the man who in the end exposed Meghan's lies, and of course they're furious with him. So the whole series ends with that statement on the screen which says, Knauf is the liar, not us. And that is the level they've sunk to. But I also think, Netflix have a lot to answer for. If an established broadcaster in Britain or America produced that sort of succession, 6 hours of lies, they would be absolutely hounded out.
No balance.
Not in no balance, no truth,
whatsoever.
no criteria. I mean, what is the criteria? It is just propaganda. Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propagandist, would look with real awe at what the Sussexes and Netflix have achieved.
Because what they've done quite cleverly, right, especially for an international audience, because I know this is landing well, shockingly, outside of the UK. What they've done very cleverly is they use their friends, their lawyer, academics who have always backed their side of the argument to seem to give a balanced picture. It's as if you are watching a balanced documentary, but in fact, all of those people are stooges. They are plants for Harry and Meghan. I mean, this friend, Lucy Fraser, I think her name is, she's some sort of PR. She's stating as categorical fact, right, that there were internals, as she calls them, at the palace who had decided that Harry and Meghan had become too popular, so they had to bring them down. Who has told Lucy that? Harry and Meghan. She hasn't spoken to anyone at the palace.
But what's really extraordinary as well is that normally in making documentaries, which I did for more than 20 years at the BBC, you film someone, that's it. This is all acted, it's contrived. Doria always has that little pause, a little tear. Have you noticed how Meghan cries, but there's never a tear? The makeup is never smeared.
But now, as allegations are questioned and partnerships falter, even supporters ask, are Harry and Meghan still credible messengers? Bauer argues, not for long. What began as a personal exit has become a public war of perception. And as the Sussexes stand by their version of the truth, critics like Tom Bauer are determined to challenge it piece by piece. The question is no longer what happened. It's who do we believe? In the media age, truth is a moving target. And for Harry and Meghan, once the darlings of defiance, the road to public redemption may now be blocked by their own contradictions. Tom Bauer says the unraveling has begun. And the world is watching.
Everything is so rehearsed.
We found that clip of her, didn't she, saying that one of her great talents is that she can cry on cue out of the left eye.
And the whole construction of her father, that man who in the end was abandoned by Meghan for months before the wedding, totally left to his own devices, isolated, really felt abandoned. That's why he sold the photographs, because he felt so besmirched. To actually say he was the reason why the whole thing exploded, why they had to leave in Britain. And then, of course, Harry saying, of course, Meghan's got no father. And now he doesn't have a father. They really are.
It's despicable. And I know you've obviously done this, as have I. You go and you speak to the Markles, you get to understand them. But actually, you can look at Meghan's own public statements. I mean, she stood up at the United Nations. That was her most famous appearance before meeting Harry. And she praised Thomas Markle. She said he was a great father who instilled the values in her that allowed her to challenge that soap company, which she talks about all the time. She credited that to... Well, of course
Absolutely.
It was. But the point is, she credited her father. And now she's sort of trying to say, oh, yeah, he was a good dad, but I actually felt really lonely as a kid.
But I think what is also so terrible is that Harry never went to see the father.
Oh.
And why not? Because Meghan was ashamed of him. Because Meghan was already constructing a whole new narrative to exclude the father. And in that, the father, Thomas Markle, blames Doria. Yeah. And Doria plays a really sinister role in this whole story. Because remember, for 10 years in Meghan's life, from the age of 5 to 18, more than 10 years, she disappeared.
But we never hear about that.
We never hear. And she says at one stage, I went to every one of Meghan's plays at school. Of course she didn't. She was never there.
No, and also, Thomas Markle paid for the university fees.
And the school fees, and the car, and the home, and the blackout, he paid for everything, the petrol, everything.
So, Tom, look, can we look ahead? Because, of course, this isn't the end. It's only a couple of weeks until we're likely to get the first leak of Spare, the Harry autobiography. Now, I hear lots of people, I disagree with them, but I hear lots of people saying, oh, what more damage can he do? But I think you think this book could be even worse.
Well, I think what they've had to do is they've had to stage and restrict what's in Netflix, so they've got something new to sell the book because there's £20 million
What do you
at
think's
least.
gonna be in there?
Well, I think there's definitely got to be something about Camilla. She's escaped so far. I think there's
We know
certainly
they don't like her.
we know we don't like her, and there's the whole race thing there. I think there's more about King Charles, the relationship with his father, the relationship between father and mother. I think there's a lot more about the whole institutions of British government. And I think something of the Queen as well. I mean, what he said about the Queen today was shocking, that she sat there at the Sandringham Summit not saying anything. But what was terrible, he said about the Queen, and he'd done about the Queen, is that he knew that he dumped on his grandmother when he was burying her in Windsor. And that is the level of their duplicity. That is unforgivable of Harry to have done that.
I think it's completely unforgivable, and actually he's trying to undo the late Queen's life work.
As he has about the Commonwealth, absolutely.
No, indeed. Tom Bauer.